Welcome to New World Now, where host Kim Corbin has compelling conversations with authors published by New World Library. They will discuss their personal journeys and share practical tools we can use to be more aware, mindful, and present in our daily lives. Now, here's your host, Kim Corbin.
Not only was Susan Ariel Rainbow Kennedy, who is internationally known and loved as Sark, one of my first guests on this podcast, she's also been one of my favorite authors and role models ever since I read her international bestseller, Succulent Wild Woman, over 20 years ago. So having the opportunity to serve as her publicist when New World Library published her recent books, Glad No Matter What, and Succulent Wild Love, which she co-wrote with her fiancé at the time, Dr. John Waddell, has been a dream come true. If you missed my first interview with Susan, I highly recommend that you go back and give it a listen because we went step by step through the 6 habits for feeling more love more often that are at the foundation of Succulent Wild Love and her work with Dr. John Waddell, who was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and ultimately passed away shortly after the book was published. One of the things I love the most about Susan is the open-hearted transparency with which she shares her life experiences with the world, so we can benefit from the wisdom she gains along the way as well. And this has most definitely been the case for me as far as the way she has shared her grief process surrounding John's death. So when my dear friend Stephanie recently passed away, rather suddenly at the age of 49, my inner wise self whispered in my ear that the dip into Sark's well of wisdom about grief and life and death and love that we're about to take would be a huge help, not only for my own grief journey surrounding Stephanie's death, but also for anyone else out there who is grieving as well. Sark's purpose is to be a transformer, uplifter, and laser beam of love, which she does through her art, words, spirit, and 17 books in print so far and counting. And I am literally just giddy with delight to have her here with me today. So welcome, Susan, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Kim, thank you so much. And I just want to acknowledge and honor Stephanie and your love for her and with her. And John wants me to tell everyone that there is no such thing as death.
Which we're going to largely be talking about today, because I just love how he's still so present in your life, and just from what I've seen. So I can't wait to hear more about it, what I've seen online. So why don't we start by having you tell us about your ongoing Succulent Wild Love relationship with John, even though he's not here with us anymore in physical form.
Oh, yes. And first, let me also start and acknowledge anyone listening who doesn't believe in that and who says, well, there is death. And I've experienced it, and I don't like hearing that. So let's make sure that I include those people too, because I was one of them until very recently. Yeah, I mean, of course there is physical death that we experience. We experience the physical death of the people in our lives. I think what John is saying from beyond the physical is that there's no death as we think of it. I mean, John was immediately active. We came up with 3 things that he would do, and so that I would know for sure that it was him. Because as much as I'm a believer, I'm also a big skeptic. And I thought, this is just so, there's no way that someone could really do these things after they've, quote, died. And he did them all the next day. But I didn't even believe it then. I mean, I thought, well, that's just made up. You know, like, even though these were intricate things that we came up with together that could not have been done by me alone. And I didn't believe it. And I think did I share the story with you in our last interview about how I did come to believe it?
Well, please tell us again.
It would be good for people to hear. We worked with a medium. We worked with a person who channels and speaks to people from the afterlife. So again, if you have different views and you're hearing this, just stay with me and I'll just explain my experience, because I always learn best through experience, as I'm sure you do too. And so after he did the 3 things that we had come up with, again, as I said, I didn't believe them. Well, the next day I had a party in our home. I wanted to fill our home with flowers and music and food and kids and life. And my darling friend Amy and her little daughter Evie Rose was 2 years old at the time, came toddling up the stairs, and we had a coat rack outside the door, and John's jackets were still hanging there. And she reached out and touched one of John's jackets and said, "What's this?" And I said, pulled it out and touched it. And I said, "That's John's jacket." She reached then behind several other jackets and pulled out another one of his jackets and said, "What's this?" And I said, "That's John's jacket too." And Amy and I traded a poignant look. And we went on with the party and didn't think more about it. The next day I was in the meeting, in a session with this channel and medium who had worked with John and I throughout his dying experience for 9 months, from his diagnosis to death. And I'm pausing because John's in my ear right now saying, "I'm not dead." So John, forgive me, but in this interview, I'm going to refer to the word death. Anyway, so this person started laughing and said, "John says, didn't you love that he did all the 3 things right away?" And I thought, oh, she's just pulling that number 3 out of the air. You know, she's just imagining there were 3 things. And so that doesn't really apply. And then she started laughing harder and she says, "John says, didn't you see what I did with Evie Rose and the jackets?" And that's when I knew it was real, because this was too much evidence. I mean, this person didn't have any idea of a party or jackets or Evie Rose or, I mean, you know, there are many mysteries, you know, and so I in that moment knew that John was communicating from another place. And he has done so almost every day since he departed 2 years and several months ago. So I just say to people, if you're interested in this, there's plenty to read. And New World Library has published wonderful books, including one I recommend called Seeking Jordan.
Yes, I actually just had Matt McKay on the show two episodes ago, and I was just thinking of him as you were talking because, you know, he, before his son died and he connected with him through channeled writing, he's a very scientifically minded skeptic. I mean, that's kind of was his identity. And so he talked a lot. We didn't actually get into it too much in the interview, but in the book, he talks a lot about how that doubt really goes hand in hand with this. Like there is no guarantee, and that doubt is part of this process.
Yes. And there's just so much for all of us to explore. There's so many mysteries, and it doesn't matter whether you believe or not. It doesn't matter whether you're hearing this. There will be valuable things that we say that are not just about this. So I want to say that too. And I want to speak about the subject of grieving because it's another great one.
Yeah. And I'm curious, how does John show up? You say that you're talking to him every day. What does that look like?
Well, he speaks very clearly. He speaks in my ear. He speaks in the air. He sends me signs. He fixes things. He winds up cords. He took off of a nick off the windshield on the car. So then I said to the healer that I still work with, I said, well, why can't he do excuse me, why can't he do other things like pay the taxes and wash my hair? And because we used to love doing that. And she said, why can't you let him do what he wants?
Oh, always learning.
Always learning. Well, you called something out, Kim, that I had written some time ago, which early after his leaving, I said that I was still learning his vibrational language.
Yes.
And I think that is what goes on, because I hear things. He also does a lot of communication in dreams. I will ask him for something during a dream. I'll say before I go to bed, John, can you help me with this? And he will often deliver the answer in a dream.
Ooh, I love that. And I've definitely, Stephanie and I's soul connection was so deep. And I think that when it's that soul level of friendship that makes it stronger than other people that I've lost. And there's times where I really feel her presence so strongly, and I have to catch myself because at the same time that doubt, like, oh, is this real, comes in. And so I'm grateful for the work you're doing and Matthew McKay's work and that kind of thing, just as reassurance that it's not crazy. And, you know, it really is a connection that lives on, even though they're not here in physical form anymore.
Yes. And I will share my darling brother Andrew said, who I'm very close to, who is, not a believer in this, and very, very distinctly not a believer. And we have arrived at a wonderful kind of détente where he now says, I believe that you've experienced this, but it's not something I've ever experienced.
Mm.
And that's, that's a long way from what he used to say, which was, that's impossible and that didn't happen.
Right.
And so I just invite everyone listening to open to another way or a new way, or be happy with the way that you have. But I really learned that and also, if you have a loved one who's left and you aren't connected to them, to let that be okay too. I think we sort of measure, I know that it's been painful for certain people to hear that I have so much connection to John if they themselves haven't been able to connect in that way.
Mm.
And, I think there's support and there's ways to get support in connecting. There's many good people channeling that you can connect with. James Van Praagh is one. I can't remember what other New World Library authors do that, but
Bill Phillips is a really good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just tell people that, some of us study this and I'm very much practicing and learning with this every day. So some people don't wish to do that type of work. And in that case, you can get a professional to help you.
Yeah, actually, that was the case with Matthew McKay's wife, where she really feels more connected to Jordan in nature, but hasn't had the direct connection. And it's just it can show up different for everyone.
Yes. And to not measure, because sometimes people hear that he's fixing things and doing things. Well, why doesn't mine do that? Why doesn't my hearted person do that? And it's everyone's on a different mission and there's different things. So I just want to make sure to be as inclusive as I can be.
Yeah. Thank you for that. You've said that you're grieving in a new paradigm by grieving deeply and living wildly together like bird wings. That image is just, since I first heard it, I just love so much. And I've really been practicing it myself lately. And I would love for you to tell us more about that.
Oh, yes. And this is available to absolutely everyone. And this is the invitation we are all being given to grieve and live together everything right now. Like, so often, I think we split it up. Oh, you don't really need to grieve until someone dies. And then you grieve and go away in a chamber by yourself until you feel better. It could be called a cavern of pain. It could be called, my friend Christina Rasmussen calls it the waiting room.
Mm.
And people go in the waiting room and they just feel bad for weeks, months, years. And many people never get out. And the reason they never get out is because they haven't changed there's a way that the brain grieves. And one of the things the brain is seeking is new experiences at the same time that we're grieving. So I joined Christina Rasmussen's program at the same time that I was aware of this concept that I was deeply grieving and wildly living. It led me to her program, and then her program reinforced that way of living, which I'm calling the new paradigm of grieving, which is that you put yourself into the world and do new things instead of hiding or isolating or being afraid of new things, which doesn't mean that you can't. I was afraid of everything. I didn't want to do anything. I felt like my whole life ended. I mean, this was my best friend. He was my beloved partner. He was my writing partner. And now he was just gone. I mean, how was I supposed to go on?
Yeah.
So that acute stage of grief is natural. I'm sure, Kim, that you felt flattened by Stephanie's departure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And we have to go through that. There's no way around that. You're not just going to bounce out and do wonderful new things. Right. However, it doesn't need to be as long. I mean, I knew Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and met her on several occasions. And she and I had wonderful talks about this. And she said her 5 stages of grieving were never meant to be linear. her 5 stages of grieving: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance.
Mm.
They were never meant to be like a ladder. Healing is spiral. It's not linear like a ladder. We come around, we solve something, we get to a different level with it, and then we go deeper into the spiral and new things surface. So this is the wildly living, deeply grieving together, where, you're sobbing and then you're laughing and getting a phone call and a wonderful invitation. I did a wonderful thing. I asked people to invite me to things. I said, don't leave me alone and think that I'm a grieving widow. And this also came from my darling brother, Andrew, when I told him I didn't want to be identified as a grieving widow, said to me, why don't you be a greening window? And so I said, that is what I will do. I will be a greening window. And so I opened my arms to the world and said, invite me in, include me, have me over, ask me to come to things. And I was flooded with invitations, which I'm still accepting. I went all over the world. I went to the big island of Hawaii. I went to Lake Tahoe. I went to a treehouse and had tea with someone. I mean, I've been more alive and happier than I've ever been during these 2 years and several months, as well as being sadder than I've ever been.
Yeah, both ends of the spectrum.
Well, yeah, and then also very important to say, in the marvelous, messy middle as well. Mm-hmm. Because the new book I'm writing is called Living Wonderful: The Surprising Gifts of Terrible Things. And it's about alchemizing and blending the wonderful and terrible into a brand new mixture you can more easily use.
Mm. Yeah, instead of this sugar, saccharine, sweet, only positive thing that tends to rise to the top from time to time.
Well, yes, and that spiritual bypassing is disastrous. And we were not ever meant to do that.
Yeah.
We were meant to include the terrible. We include the terrible and we alchemize it. We change it. We transform it. And it takes time. And some things never change. Some things remain terrible.
Yeah.
And to be able to just say some things remain terrible. My mentally ill older brother was a drug addict and alcoholic and never was healed and never felt better and died that way. And our whole family tried everything and nothing, quote, worked. So that's important to acknowledge also. And we could give a whole list right now of things that are terrible that are not currently changing.
Yes. Yeah.
And
it's always both.
Yeah, it's always both. And we need to do business with both. And some people are hovering over in the terrible and dwelling there and magnifying it and making it worse. And some people are huddled over in the wonderful saying, it's all great. Look at the light, love and light, great. Love and light is great. Without the dark, it just doesn't mean shit.
Yes.
And by the way, I often am, miscast as someone who's, about this from Glad No Matter What, I said mindlessly positive people annoy me. And I would even add now, I find them to be dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I write in bright colors and I appear incredibly optimistic and positive, which I am. It's grounded in a whole lot of terrible.
Yeah.
And a lot of my history and what I've alchemized. Let's make sure people listening know. I mean, I've alchemized and transformed incredible numbers of things. I mean, poverty, depression, incest, suicide attempt, hiding from my purpose, obviously the death of John or the leaving of John, and, all kinds of things. And I continue to do that work and will all of my life.
And I'm so grateful you do it publicly so we all get to learn. Like I said in my intro, I love that about you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, me too. I couldn't do it any other way.
Yeah. And that's a great segue, actually, to the next thing I want to talk to you about, because you just recently did a fabulous Facebook post, and you said that you had been dating and working with a matchmaker, but put that on hold for now. And when people ask you if you're dating, you say that you're dating the world. So, which I just love. So tell us more about that.
Yes, I'm dating the world. I realized, okay, I'm someone that's in love with the world, and I have so much love to give and share, and I have so much love I want to receive. And so, romantic love is still, I started dating wonderful men and realized I wasn't really quite ready I intend to create another great love. I think it's just a little too soon still. I mean, I thought 2 years and 2 months after John left, I'd already be in another great love. And I realized, well, wait a minute, I am. I'm in love with the world. And of course, I love myself. And there's so much. So I travel and teach, and I just am, constantly amazed by how much love there is that we all have, which, by the way, includes seeing love where it's not so beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, it's not beautiful at all. We need to look everywhere and find the love. And that includes being in traffic and being crabby, being at a doctor's office, being at the DMV, being in a prison, visiting someone. I mean, there is love everywhere. I mean, Maya Angelou has the best quote about love. I just saw it again the other day, and I want to share it now because it says, "Love recognizes no barriers. It jumps hurdles, leaps fences, penetrates walls to arrive at its destination full of hope." Isn't that so wonderful?
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm realizing, and then I've just been, flooded with responses to that I'm dating the world, where everyone is saying, I'm dating the world too. And thank you for reframing the dating game. And, until or if you choose to find a romantic partner, you could be dating the world. And what a wonderful vision of all of us dating the world.
And for those of us who are in a relationship, we can be polyamorous and love the world and our partner.
Oh, yes. And thank you for saying that, because thank you so much for mentioning that, because I didn't acknowledge the people, and it was so good. And I'm so glad you're bringing that up, because you can be dating the world with your partner and dating the world separate from your partner and bring that love back to the partnership.
Yes. The love just is exponential.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. You also say in your writings about dating the world that love never leaves us. We leave love. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yes. We're always thinking that love has left us if someone doesn't call or text, or if we don't receive something that we thought we wanted. Oh, I knew it. I'm not going to get the love that I'm not going to have the love that I thought, or, we're convinced that love has left us. And we're forgetting or not realizing that we have left love. And it's really powerful because, I think I talked about this. We measure, we count, we look for where love is not. And then we have all these inner critics that leap up and say, we never, we should, we always. Meanwhile, love is buoyantly around us all of the time.
It's waiting to be noticed.
Noticed, waiting to be acknowledged, waiting to be spoken of, waiting to be magnified, waiting to be shared.
I love that. Love, love, love.
Yeah. So do I.
Let's see. We have a few minutes left. I'd like for you to just talk a little bit about what the most important thing that you've learned so far from your succulent wild love relationship with John is. And I just want to say, just watching from the outside, I say so far because, what a journey you're on and what wisdom you're bringing forth. So I know there's going to be even more, but so far, what would you say that you've most learned from your relationship with him?
Well, I think I would say, we were together almost 4 years. Of course, I wanted it to be 400 years. And, I wrote, I think you probably read this post that I wrote, that it was my worst fear of my whole life. Well, actually, two worst fears. One was, what if the person you love just suddenly dies? And then the other one was, what if they need you to take care of them and you don't want to?
Yeah.
So I used to tease John and say, great, you did them both in one, because I was his primary caregiver for 9 months. And he did indeed, leave and die. So, but then I wrote, it was the most horrifying, despair-filled thing I could have ever imagined. But I want everyone to know it's also not that bad.
Mm.
And isn't that an odd thing to say?
Yeah.
And isn't this an odd thing that I've just said that? Like, how could I say that? And then I go on actually to explain that. And so it's one of the things that I'm really going to be sharing in my new book about how to actually do that. Because I discovered that it's not linear. Grief does not happen in a linear fashion. Neither does the experience of loss. As much as it seems that I lost something so valuable, I lost John. Like we say passed away, we say, loss. The other truth is that I'm more filled with love than ever from knowing John.
Yeah.
So exponential. I mean, I am 100 million times more loving person.
Wow.
And isn't that a wonderful thing to know?
Yes, especially given how amazingly loving you were to begin with. It's just exponential. And I just feel so lucky to be so tuned into your journey. I mean, when I heard the news about John, I thought, how on earth is she going to come through this? And if you really walk your talk, which is my goal with these podcasts, is to interview people who do. So thank you so much, Susan, for coming back on and talking to me and for being you.
Well, Kim, I just want to really say that you also really walk your talk. You are not only the interviewer of these podcasts, you are the liver of all of the things that are being shared. You practice and live and do this work so beautifully and so magnificently. It's just an honor to know you. And I want everyone to know what an incredible person you are.
Oh, well, thank you so much. For more information about Succulent Wild Love and the work of Susan Ariel Rainbow Kennedy, you can visit her online at planetsark.com.
Thank you for listening to New World Now with Kim Corbin from New World Library. New World Library publishes books and audios that inspire and challenge us to improve the quality of our lives and our world. For more information about their books and authors, you can visit them online at newworldlibrary.com.